Welcome to episode 306 of Sports Geek. On this week's episode, I welcome back Charlie Shin, who is now heading up data initiatives at the Indianapolis Colts.
Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who is scrambling to unban a Facebook Business Manager account, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, my name is Sean Callanan. You can find me on most places on the internet at Sean Callanan or at Sports Geek, where you find most things Sports Geek. You can contact me, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. If you would like to try to email me, which you're more than welcome to do as a podcast listener. Yes, Facebook Business Manager, trying to get people's access back. Had a few clients that had some troubles with their Facebook ad accounts and Business Manager and trying to get access again. I can't stress enough, please secure your digital assets, especially with Facebook at the moment. It's going through a bit of a transition change on its back end and a lot of its tools, a lot of change happening there. And when there's a lot of change, there's a lot of bugs and a lot of bugginess and a lot of strange behaviour. It's one that you've got to weather the storm. At the moment, if you're not aware, Facebook Business Manager is becoming Facebook Business Suite. They're trying to consolidate and improve some of the tools available to business owners that use assets across Facebook, whether it be Facebook pages, Instagram accounts, WhatsApp, and the like. There's a new creator tool that keeps getting better and better, in my opinion, and really offers some options there. They're obviously changing the way that Instagram can be accessed and how you can award access to Instagram now that you can post from the creator tool. And there's a stack of changes in the way that pixels are being implemented around the iOS 14.5 changes. So, been up to my neck in Business Manager and now Business Suite as it's been rolled out with a few different clients where we're helping them understand both the opportunities there, but also just doing a bit of cleanup and assessing of what their digital infrastructure looks like across their entire business. So, if you think you need a review and an assessment of everything digital and the opportunities that Facebook and Google and the like offer you and what you need installed on your website and apps, please get in touch. Like I said, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com or sportsgeekhq.com/phone call. You can book in a time, or maybe you can book in a Pick My Brain session for me to go and assess what you've got set up currently and what you could do. And you can do that at sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain. Before I get into this chat with Charlie Shin, who is now at the Indy Colts, previously at the Major League Soccer, MLS, just a quick update. As of recording, the Gravitas Glory Beer campaign is fully funded. It's going to close shortly as I'm recording now, but will be completely closed by the time this episode goes out. Thank you to everyone who supported the campaign. Great to hit the targets, sell a stack of beer, get some engagement and some good press around the campaign and the team. So it's definitely a model I'll be exploring more with Gravitas around crowdfunding and chasing new exciting collaborations. But I do think it's really an opportunity for other sports teams and esports teams. So if you're interested in looking at it as a model and seeing how you might use it as an activation or a way to do some unique things in the merch or a collaboration like this we're doing here with a beer, with a craft brewery, please get in touch. As always, thank you very much to my Patreon subscribers. You can support what we're doing in the sports business space by going to sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. It helps to cover all the bills around the podcasts, creating the email newsletter, and everything else we're doing in the sports business space. So if you're a Patreon subscriber, I really do appreciate it. If you haven't yet, please check it out and appreciate your support at whatever level you can afford. Now, here is my chat with Charlie Shin from the Indianapolis Colts. Very happy to welcome back a good friend of mine who is now with the Indianapolis Colts. He's the VP of Data, Strategy and Analytics. Charlie Shin, welcome back to the podcast.
Sean, it's great to be back. I'm excited to actually speak to you and see your face. It's been a long time, so thanks for having me.
Yes. The yearly sojourn and the normal catch up that we normally would have at a conference like Seat has obviously been stopped when I can't travel and no one can travel. But yeah, I was looking through my notes and you were my 100th on the 100th episode of Sports Geek. So it's great to have you back post 300 to sort of catch up where you're at, what you've been doing, and I guess how you've been dealing with the last 15 months that the whole sports industry's been dealing with. So. When we last spoke, you were working at Major League Soccer in a data strategy analytics role, and MLS has gone from strength to strength since we spoke. You can get into a debate if it's in the Big Four or it's now in the Big Five, and how it's nipping at the heels of the big leagues. What were some of the key projects and key wins that you sort of had in your last couple of years at MLS?
Wow. There's so many initiatives that really helped drive that league for so many years. Certainly having a lot of the new franchises that have come on board in the last couple of years, and the investments that all of those clubs have made, and the ownership group that consists of those clubs, I think definitely had a huge impact on kind of driving that momentum across our growth. So
yep.
I think that has played a key role. I mean, we've seen the success of LAFC. Yep. Austin FC just opened their first game with the U.S. national team playing there, and had a really amazing experience just seeing it on TV, and the fans that were attending. I think just all of these additional clubs coming on board, and when they come on board, they fully come on board with everything that they have, from the new stadiums to the actual teams, as well as the front office. So I think that just continues to add on to existing the clubs and the league, and I think that has definitely helped tremendously.
And do you think? Sorry, go. Do you think there's a bit of a right place, right time? Like, if we look back at our early years of talking at Seat and how data and stadium design, and MLS comes in with new stadiums, built by with all the latest bells and whistles of tech, but then also their design with that fan in mind. And so you've got these great new stadiums, new brands, new teams that are driven from a data point of view that sort of like takes all the advantages of everything everyone's learned over the past 10 years.
Absolutely. I mean, all the clubs that are coming on board now really benefits from all of the lessons learned from previous clubs, because, one thing that's really good about MLS is the information sharing and the collaboration that exists across the team. So, all the new clubs coming on board, what they do is they talk to the president and the front office and learn about some of the things that they would have done differently, yep. As well as looking at some of the success on features within the stadiums and how it gets launched, how it's presented. All of that is reflected into their new club launch. So obviously, with the going through a lot of these new clubs coming on board, I could imagine the one that's coming up, the most recent, would have had all of that benefit of learnings that has come across and take advantage of that. So I think definitely there's a benefit to that. But I think right now everyone's just riding that wave of the soccer nation, and we've talked about this vision that our commissioner have, and expecting the U.S. to become that soccer nation and building that soccer nation. At the center of that is MLS and the role that they're playing. And then with the 2020 six, right? The Olympics coming, not the Olympics, the World Cup coming to U.S. That's going to be a significant opportunity where they could take the league to the next level, and even potentially become that third or fourth major professional league in the States. And I think they do have that potential.
And it's one thing, I think, it's even in my part of the world, soccer, football, depending on where you are, is that, lots of participation, lots of people playing, and then converting them and getting them into games and getting them into into stadiums. I think that's something that it's always been the untapped, the what if in the world of football in developing markets like the US and potentially Australia. Like, do you think there's like some of that you're starting to see some of that unlocked with, it being a family friendly event and accessible, and all of the hero making that's happening in MLS to really see, the crescendo in 2026?
I think there's a lot of components that goes into it, not only the participation, because soccer has always been the number one participated sport in the States for many years. So yep. I think one thing that has helped is seeing soccer players at a global stage. I mean, you look at players like Lusic and his success, and you also see a lot of these national team players being successful domestically as well as internationally. And what that does is that sets a inspiration for a lot of these young kids who want to continue to play. And in the past, they didn't have that idol that they could put in at that international level, and that kind of deterred a lot of the players from transferring from playing soccer over to football or other basketballs and other sports. But now, kids want to be a soccer player, right? They want to become a professional soccer player because they see a lot of great players here at MLS, but also seeing a lot of the U.S. Players being successful overseas. So I think that's setting up a lot of that quality youth development, and that's going to be the kind of the feeding system for the growth of the MLS as well.
And so a last one on the MLS piece, like working on league side, like league has certain objectives and certain projects that it wants to work on, and then the teams have their own, their own objectives, their own local markets. How do you get, and sometimes there is friction and sometimes those goals are not aligned. What were some of the things you did, from a MLS and a data point of view that tried to bring some alignment there? Because, like I've worked in clubland and now I've got my own esports club, and that friction between, hey, I want to do this as a team, the league wants to do this is always a sometimes healthy and sometimes unhealthy tension.
Yeah, I think we had at the MLS, I think it was a little bit more aligned, and there's a lot more collaboration that's taking place. And I think that's because there is a set kind of vision and understanding of the market, as yep. well as understanding of the core audiences that we needed to go after. And then what are some of the capabilities that we needed to develop in order for us to achieve that? And then from a programming or activation standpoint, certainly the clubs could go and invest and activate differently. But there's a lot of times in order to get there, there's a lot of key infrastructure that needs to go in. And sometimes it's not the most efficient to have individual clubs do it on their own. So I think at that level is where the league could come in and kind of make that investment, especially on the data and analytic and CRM infrastructures, where there's a lot of role that we played in selecting the most advanced and leading infrastructures, and then creating different partnerships or structures where the clubs could benefit from it. Yep. And then it's a tool, right? So the clubs could go and then do what they want to do and how they want to execute and use that tool. But what we're trying to focus on was, how do we provide that tool most efficiently and build it in a structure they're going to have access to a lot of these rich data that the league has access to, and then being able to combine that with the clubs, so then they could go and execute that's most relevant to their market. So I think although yes, it is the same areas, and certainly there's different interests and different needs by market, but overall from an infrastructure standpoint and a lot of that capability standpoint, it was more about, how do we help them elevate that? And then each of those clubs could kind of take that and go and run on their own. So
now you are at the Indianapolis Colts, as I said, VP of Data Strategy and Analytics. You joined there January 2021, right in the middle of smack bang of what we've been going through, and moving, and then on top of that, moving from league side to team side. What was it like? What was your first couple of weeks starting at the Colts, I guess in the middle of a season, in the middle of a pandemic?
I mean, it's certainly not the circumstance that I wanted to kind of make that transition, but it was such a great opportunity. I just couldn't pass it up. And, having worked at the league for the last 15 years, always kind of felt that I didn't feel felt close with our fans, right?
Yep.
It's like you're there. Yes, you're supporting all of the 27 clubs and helping them build better engagement with their fans in their markets, but just didn't feel like that they were my fans or my market. So always felt like there was a distance there. And I felt at some point, I really wanted to go and work at a club in a very specific market where I could kind of build that out, right? And have that relationship with our fans, go deeper beyond just helping build the capabilities or infrastructures, but be able to actually execute against it, learn from it, and rebuild it. So when this opportunity came along, great ownership.
Yeah.
The Irsay family has such a great reputation in the market as well as in the industries. The work that they've done to help grow the sport of football, but also all of the work that they've done in the community was everything that I kind of wanted if I had to work for a ownership group. They kind of represented that. So kind of check that box going, okay, this is definitely ownership group that I want to work for and be part of that organization. And then the market, Indianapolis, it's not a small market, as well as it's not the major big markets like New York and LA, where there's a lot of competitions and saturations and a lot of noise in the market. And then, this is not your smaller market either. So I felt like from a market standpoint, it was a good, sustainable, as well as there's not a whole lot of professional competition here, except for the NBA team Pacers across the street. But it was something that I felt like it was manageable. And then I've been in the market a couple of times. We had our MLS draft here in Indianapolis, and obviously I have a relationship with the sales force and having using the tool and having their headquarter here for their marketing cloud gave me opportunity to come in, kind of interact. So I was comfortable coming to the market. So again, check the box. Yep. And then the last piece was really on-field performance. Being when you go and work for a team, you want to work for a team that has a pretty quality on-field product. And looking at the Colts for many years, they have won the Super Bowls. They have great coaching staff and GM staff, technical teams here. They went to the playoff last year, and we're building off of that momentum. Just got a new quarterback. So there was a lot of good kind of quality coming out of this team and the growth and the future that I saw. I was like, you know what? This is a team that I could certainly support and get behind, and they certainly have the opportunity to win on the field. So that's another one, kind of check the box saying, hey, this is a great team to be part of.
Yep.
So when thinking of all the different kind of elements in wanting to and deciding whether or not to make that transition, I just felt like it was a no-brainer. And then the COVID was just another factor that meant, this might be a good transition time period for me to kind of step away from the work that I've done at the MLS and then kind of go and work at the club level.
So the one point that was really that I took away from there early on was you're talking about the difference between, I guess, the league role, but also from a data and a fan point of view and the team role. Like, you're right. No one is a fan of a league. Like, yes, I watch NBA, or I watch NFL, I watch MLS, but the passion, I call it like the tattoo metric. Like, people will get a tattoo of the Colts logo on, but they're not getting an NFL tattoo. They're not getting an MLS tattoo. And so it's sort of, does that passion, is there, does that change your view of the data, that passion point and that fan avidity that people have for a team? Is it more how does it change the way you look at the data and the analysis of the data?
Oh, even the application, right? Because at the league, a lot of the data points that we were managing were the data the engagement data coming from the league platforms, right? So you're looking at a lot of you certainly get a lot of data from a quality standpoint, but in terms of the quantity standpoint, but in terms of when looking at the quality, it sits with your club level, your ticketing data, your club newsletter engagement data, your club merchandise data. So although we did have some of that access, really couldn't go any deeper in understanding or even needing to analyze it, because a lot of things that we were doing were more on a aggregated level or at a macro level that really didn't allow us to go deeper into understanding in specific markets and specific clubs. So this was a great opportunity for even just being in the club for the last 5 months. I've worked on building out the variable pricing models as well as dynamic models for our upcoming 2021 season, as well as our suite pricing strategies. Looking at all of our different data sources to think about different ways that we could engage. Conducted 3 surveys for our season ticket holders, our suite holders. So there's been a lot of work done, and through that, there's also been a lot of insight and understanding of how our fans are engaging with our club. So it was really great to kind of go in deeper, because I felt like I was always scratching the surface and providing directions and hopefully helpful insights and guidance to our clubs, but never really had that chance to go deeper and then actually execute and see the results to be able to apply back to our learnings. And so this was a great opportunity for me to kind of go one step further and actually start engaging with our fans, and then using that market data, using that ticket transactional data to actually make decisions that impact our fans in the markets and help build that growth for our organization. So definitely it's been a great experience. I've learned a lot as well during the last 5 months, but overall it's been everything that I've wanted, kind of imagined. So off to a great start.
And I've spoken to a few people that have gone from league to league and gone into roles at the NFL, and they've just remarked on the scale, like just the amount of data, like the amount of attention, the fact that that every home game is a massive event, all the eyeballs that come from around the nation, not just in local market. You're being a data guy and analytics, like how the scale and taking on board all of that information coming in. How has that been early on?
You're spot on. The one thing that I kind of noticed making the transition was the scale, for sure. And what I mean by scale isn't size of the front office or anything like that, but from a data standpoint, certainly the size of data that we have access to at a club level is much larger, and it reflects the market size and the fan base and all of that. So it makes sense. But what I've also noticed was, because now I'm at the club NFL, and now I'm getting support from the NFL league and all of the infrastructures and supports that they're providing, I was actually quite surprised at where they were compared to where they were 5-7 years ago, because I know exactly where they were when I was having conversation with my counterpart at the NFL in terms of their vision of where they wanted to go and the areas that they wanted to invest. And, at that point, we were a little bit more further in development of this centralized resource and infrastructure. So, we were kind of talking to them about, hey, this is some of the things that we're doing. And they're like, okay, we're just getting started. And now...
But that was the versus of the nimbleness you had at MLS, and you're growing so you can pick and choose, whereas established massive league, like some of those changes came a bit slower for them.
But I think it was more about how fast they got to where they are compared to when they started. Like, our initiative started 10 years ago in terms of trying to build this infrastructure. And we're still not even close to where we should be compared to the time that we spent. And that was because, again, we were a league and there was a lot of other priorities and there wasn't a whole lot of investment that were put in to get this kind of off the ground much faster, right? And kind of accelerate that process. Having said that, the NFL kind of started late in terms of their approach to development of this centralized infrastructure. But when I got here and actually saw the details and kind of, when they lift that hood up and I saw the engine, I was blown away because although they started 7 years ago, they're about 3 times further than where MLS is now. And that's all because of I think the investment and the scale that they are able to put in when they put their minds to it and say, okay, this is what we need to build and this is how we're going to support the clubs and this is what we need to do as an organization. They're like, boom. and now. So
when they put something into focus, it happens quickly. They put the resource behind it and they can get to where they want to get to as quick as possible.
Exactly. And they're at a level where it's like, this is what we wanted to do MLS and you guys are already there. Although you started halfway after we started the whole process. So that just speaks to everything that NFL does in each of these areas where scale, but also kind of speaks to being very methodical and to your point, when they feel like this is it and it fits into their strategy, and then they're putting all the money where their mouth is and saying, okay, we're going to do it. So let's put our efforts and resource and money and get it done. And I feel like that's going to be a huge benefit for a lot of the NFL clubs. Certainly, we're going to try to take advantage of that as much as possible at the Colts. Because they're providing a lot of resources that are, leading edge. And they got a great team. They have an amazing analytic team there right now, led by Justin Friedman, and he's doing an amazing work. And his team has provided so much resource and insights and data for these clubs. I think it's just going to be a huge game changer down the line.
Yep, and the piece, the question I want to ask around, being in the strategy role, like going from MLS, which was again in a growth phase and constantly looking at what that looks like, to an established, well-established, terrific foundation. How does your approach, like, what are some of your key objectives strategically? Because you're more in you're not really in pure growth. Everyone still wants growth. Everyone wants more fans. Everyone wants more revenue. But are you more is it more levers that are being pulled and optimization, or diving into particular areas? Like, what's your focus from a strategic point of view?
So right now, I'm really focused on that strategic level because what I've recognized at the Colts was that they have an amazing operation going on right now in terms of how they sell tickets, how they market, events, sponsorships, and our analytic team. I've walked into our team where our analytic team, as well as our CRM team and our digital marketing team, they're amazing. They're doing a really good job in all of these different areas. They've done a great job, but what they were missing is kind of bringing this all together to be a little bit more strategic in terms of how that organization needed to kind of move forward. And that's the piece that I think I could come in and really help out. And that's really just taking existing things that they were doing, whether it's an infrastructure or all of the different programs that they've put in place, and then just helping them kind of bring that all together from, a lot of things that I'm focusing on is market segmentation. So defining who do we need to go after? Let's be a little bit more strategic about how we allocate our resources in terms of who we target within the market, as well as working on understanding some of that KPIs. How do we measure our success, right? Because a lot of times, which is a similar case across all professional sports, is that we're so focused on the operational KPIs. What's our season ticket sales amount? What is our revenues? What's the conversion rates? That's just, we call it that lagging indicator, right? what's the leading indicator that we want to be focusing on? Because if we do that well, all of this is going to achieve in the way that we want to get to. So we got to first focus on being consumer oriented and then understanding who they are. Yep. How do we grow them, and what are the important things that we need to measure against them? And once we do that, then it's going to lead to greater retention. It's going to lead to greater ATPs. It's going to lead to greater conversions in our season tickets and all of that. So those are some of the work that I'm working on. And then the infrastructure, right? Again, a lot of investment has gone into different technologies, but very much point solutions and driven by different departments for their different needs. But now as an organization, in order for us to be really impactful in the market, we got to think holistically and look at all these technology platforms collectively and say, okay, how do we bring all this together and make sure that they're talking to each other? And then where are the inefficiency that exists within the technology platforms where there's a duplications, right? And some are maybe we don't need it because we already have these kind of capabilities on other solutions. So bring that all together is some of the work that I'm going to be doing for the next year and a half.
Yep. You discussed a little bit on some of the projects you worked on so far, like coming out of COVID. Hopefully we're in, now next back to normal. Like how are you, setting up the plans for next season? Like, we're starting to see stadiums be filled both indoor and outdoor in the US as more people get vaccinated, but there's still some reticence from people coming back and unsurety and, that whole equation. How do you try to set some plans to say what next season might look like? Like how are things like affecting things like your variable pricing and knowing how much inventory is going to be out there? How are you trying to figure out what next season might be like and what fans might be doing next year?
Sure. It's day by day just because of, it's a very fluid situation. Good new thing is everything's kind of moving toward positive direction. Yep. In terms of seeing, economy open up, vaccination distributions numbers going up. So that's all positive, especially with our season opening up in September. It gives us time to even see that numbers go up even more. So, we're being optimistic, but at the same time, all of the market is really driven by the local guidance in terms of the percentage of capacities and all of that. So we're kind of being optimistic. But one thing that we're recognizing is the people are ready. Yep. I think people are ready to come out. We've seen it from other markets, right? So like Atlanta is a great example because they were one of the first markets that opened up full capacity. And we've seen it from Atlanta Brave games as well as Atlanta United games where they fully opened up the capacities and people are ready to come out. And I think that's a good positive sign for us. So we're being optimistic, and that is getting reflected in a lot of our strategies that we're working on. There are one interesting feedback that we've gotten from our as we were having conversation with our ticketing partner is that they were mentioning that there's multiple venues that they're managing across the states, and obviously there's different events, concerts that are coming back and opening up, and they share kind of interesting insight where they compare two events where one, it's fully opened, no restrictions, taking full capacity, compared to other events where they're still requiring people to wear masks inside, or they're saying, hey, we're going to limit the capacity to 50 or percent. What they were saying is that they're actually seeing much faster sales on no restrictions versus events with the restrictions. Okay. Which would have been
it's like the restrictions are causing hesitancy.
Exactly. It's impacting a lot of people where because they've been restricted for so many years, so many months now, that it feels like so many years. But they're ready to come out, so they don't want to deal with other additional restrictions. Where I don't want to go to an event when they're requiring me to wear a mask. Then I just want to go to places where it doesn't. So I'm not going to say whether it's good or bad, but I think certainly it's exactly the opposite of what we've seen before, where people didn't want to come out if they didn't have any mask restrictions in place, or they didn't want to come out when there wasn't any kind of protocol being put in place to protect people. So I think the kind of the sides have changed now, and people are ready to come out. And again, that's just a positive sign for us as we continue to prepare for the opening of our season.
Terrific. And because fans are now so accustomed to using QR codes, how many QR codes will we see around the Colts Stadium and collecting data when fans do return, Charlie? I mean, data, like the QR codes were pretty much dead and buried 2 years ago, and they've come back with a vengeance. Do you think they'll be used by more sponsor activations and around stadiums more often these days because fans know how to use them, or they get overused and we kill them off as greedy marketers?
No, I mean, I don't know, even setting aside QR code, I think just in general, people are more going to be familiar with the usage of digital, right, and their phones. Yep. So as more clubs continue to digitize their tickets and go mobile only versus paper tickets, I think this is a great opportunity and great leverage for kind of making that transition. We're certainly looking to leverage that as well. But I think definitely more people will be used to using their phones and digital tickets, digital engagement. So it just accelerates more engagement through digital platforms, which means there's going to be more data that's going to be generated. But having said that, there's also a lot of policies and changes that are taking place in the market that's also limiting access to data as well at the same time. So with the new privacy restriction that Apple is introducing, and a lot of the conversation, especially in the States, that are taking place about the privacy policies and a lot of these social digital companies and their usage of those data. So we'll see how that goes, but it's certainly a lot of changes that are happening within the market that we just need to be updated and keep ourselves on the conversation.
I mean, the trends, like you said there, with iOS bringing changes to not track, Apple talking about not only being able to track it, EDMs and opening up emails. Like, there's a lot of changes ahead for people in the data space and understanding what they're doing. But all of these changes always come with, checks and balances, and there's still going to be ways to see that your campaigns worked and that kind of thing. But it's, I guess, it's just going to be stricter and shows more value of actually owning your own data, and rather than and relying on someone else's database or someone else's data store.
And we knew this was coming, right? With the GDPR, and then for us the CCPA, and that's just going to continue to be the storyline. But as a marketer, I do truly believe that if we are able to serve our customers better in a transparent way, they will share their information because they see the benefit of it, right? I think it's all about the trust and the show of the value to our fans in terms of how we manage their data and how we're being careful with the usage of the data. But at the end of the day, if there is a value that comes out of that sharing of that data, then why not, right? Even just putting myself in a consumer standpoint, and when I interact with different companies, if I know that there's a value that I'm going to get by sharing that information, whether it's personalizations or a offering or certain benefits, then I'm okay with it. But I only do that with the brand that I trust, right? And I wouldn't do that with the brand where I'm not familiar with, or I haven't yet seen the values, or certainly there's been cases where I've shared data and then suddenly I get other information from their affiliations or others. So in those cases, then I'm like turned off right away. So I think it's all about building that relationship and trust with your customers and being able to show them what the value will be if they do share that information. Then all these policy changes shouldn't really have a impact on what we do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the too long don't read is, if you're a bad marketer and have bad intentions, these changes are going to hurt you. But if you're good at what you do and you have a really strong trust factor and you're delivering value, you won't be affected because you're already following those rules. It's not like you have to change your behavior. And, the way you just described it, is that way. And I think that's where sports has an advantage in this space. Back to that point of, passion point. You've already got a really high trust value and passion point for someone to say, yes, I will sign up because I want to get, this info from the Colts, and I want to have that personalized relationship, and I want to feel like I'm in part of the locker room. So, Charlie, I really do appreciate you taking up some time of your Friday night. I want to finish with the Sports Geek closing 5. Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
If my memory serves me correctly, it's got to be the Mets game. So I grew up in Jersey. My uncle used to take me to the Mets game. Back then, it was the old Shea Stadium. Well, back then, that old Shea Stadium wasn't so old. So it was actually pleasant. Yeah. And they had an amazing team. So I was fortunate enough. I think that was like back in '84. So I kind of was part of that wave when they actually won the World Series in '86. And that was just an amazing experience. And growing up, that whole experience kind of led me to being a fan of baseball growing up, and the Mets certainly. So that I think that would have been my first kind of major sporting event.
Terrific memory. You've been to a lot of sports events over your time, and been a lot of different stadiums and venues. Is there a favourite food memory or a go-to food when you go to a sports event?
So there's a couple of different menus across different countries. I would have to say, in the States, it's I've mentioned that I love the baseball when I was growing up. It's the Cracker Jack peanut popcorn. Growing up, that was like one of my favorite. And I would always, when I go to baseball, grab that, and they got little stickers in there that I would kind of take out, and then the popcorn and the peanut in there. It was just it was great. So that certainly kind of brings that memory. And even to this date, if I go to stadium, I try to kind of get one of that and eat it. And then I've also went to a lot of sporting events in South Korea when I kind of worked out there for a couple of years. Yep. And they have a pretty interesting culture. Their food and beverage in stadium isn't as advanced as in state. So a lot of times what happened is you have a lot of food vendors in front of the stadiums. Yep. And then you buy a lot of that, and then you actually go in and eat it there. And they have these it's called like spicy rice cake, but it's really spicy. It's made out of rice, and it's something that I enjoy even outside. But it was really nice to just buy one of that, and then we would buy a bottle of soju, and then we'll bring it in and we'll just drink it and eat it and watch the games. But that's would be kind of my favorite food in South Korea. Yeah.
Terrific. What's the first app you open in the morning?
It's got to be my Outlook.
That's fine.
Yeah, because one, it got all my schedules. So I'm kind of one of those guys, wake up and just make sure I check my schedule for the day. And then I check my emails just to see what has come across. And then the next app that I go is my New York Times, and just catch up on my news for the morning. Yeah.
Is there someone that you follow or admire that the podcast listeners should follow, and why?
I do. I don't. Of course, your podcast is like my number one go-to.
No. This is not a handball to seek self-praise. I actually want a genuine nomination, Charlie, but I do thank you.
So Malcolm Gladwell is someone that I've besides his podcast, because he started podcast pretty late. He was more of the writer, as you know, but I've loved all of his books. And I just love how he thinks, and just how he just questions and talks, and I've always enjoyed that in a book. And then now he brought that over into his podcast, Revisional History. And that again was great because one, it wasn't sports. So it actually got me outside of sports and hear about all these different stories that, to his point, that I just never thought about, right? It really gets you thinking, and like raises question, like, you know what, this makes sense. I've never thought of it this way. So it's a great ways that get you mind thinking and gets me off of sports topics. So
it is a good listen. The only fear I have when I find some of my authors that I really like start getting into podcasting, they sometimes stop writing. So Bill Simmons is a really good example. Like, he wrote and wrote and wrote, and now all he does is talk. And I still like listening to him, but occasionally I'm like, Bill, can you stop writing? So hopefully affliction doesn't happen to Malcolm Gladwell. He seems to be pretty consistent in churning out books, but hopefully that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, he's made quite a bit of investment into the world of podcasts. Yeah. He created this whole company that does, a lot of other podcasts outside of his, which I've now started to kind of extend into. But definitely, he's one of my favorite.
Yep. Terrific. Lastly, what social media platform is your MVP? So what's the one platform that works for you? And then maybe you can put your Colts hat on and say what platform is working for the Colts.
Sure. So personally, yes, I'm kind of in that old generation still. I use my Facebook and, keep touch with my friends and families and around the world. So Facebook is my number one kind of social media platforms. I tried TikToks and, my kids laugh, and then that was it pretty much.
You just get dragged in to do the dance as the dad on TikTok and you go, that's it, I'm done.
Exactly. I'm that one of those dads that come up here and there, time to time, and that's pretty much it. And then professionally, LinkedIn, again, I think that's one of the best kind of professional channels that I've used to connect with people and also connect with a lot of the, I support a lot of students in trying to help them get into the sports as well as kind of develop their careers in sports. So that's been one of the key channels that I would utilize to connect with our students as well. So it's certainly for that.
Yep. So I'm going to stop you there because that is a really good point, and it's one that I do get asked a lot, and I'm sure you're the same, working in professor roles in multiple universities. Like, what is the... And when anyone asks, how do I get into sports? I'm like, start learning data, learn how to chop and slice Excel and understand, because that's where there's a great need. And the need for more people in that space and more skills in that space hasn't stopped. Like, the appetite's amazing. But for someone like yourself that's in the space, what is like some of your advice to those young students trying to break into the world of sport?
I tell them, don't try to get into the sports, not because it's not a good industry. What I've tried to tell them is, like, try to not focus on the industry, but try to focus on your skill set. So whether that's analytic or marketing or, communications, media, or, whatever, finance, legal. Because I tell them every sports organization has exactly similar roles that every other industries have. So you don't necessarily have to be in like sports to like be in a specific area to do the sports.
Yep.
If you are in finance, you could still do sports. If you're in legal, you could still do sports. HR, you could still do sports, right? So what I tell them is, like, as you start your career, don't focus on the industries, but focus on building the skill sets, because those skill sets in time will get you into the industries. But even if it doesn't work out in your industries, you could always go to other places because that skill set would always be with you.
Yep.
But if you start in an industry, in an area that you don't like or enjoy because you want to start in sports, it's not going to work, because if that doesn't work out, you've spent 3-4 years doing something in that area that you didn't enjoy. Now you have to start all over again to be able to do something in other industries, right? So I say to them, like, look, find your passion for a certain skill set that you want to do, whatever that area is. And then if you could do that within sports, that's great. But even if you can't do it in sports, try to build that experience first.
Yep.
And then try to find opportunities, then get into the sports. So that's kind of the advice that I've given my students whenever I can.
It is terrific, because more and more sports are hiring, there is this perception that you're always hiring inside sports, like you're hiring someone, from another team or another league, which does happen. Like we've just evidenced there, you've gone from MLS to an NFL team, but you're right, bringing in someone with if I want to go Liam Neeson, a particular set of skills, right, that can analyze the data and come back to, hey, here's the model. It's lifting the bar internally.
The only reason I was able to get into MLS is because of all the CRM experience that I've built over the years working at a consulting firm for other industries like credit cards, CPGs, consumer electronics, finance, insurance, right? All of that experience has led me to find that opportunity within MLS because of that skill set. So I tell them, look, I got in sports very late. So after spending about 7-8 years in my career, that's when I made transition into sports with all of that experience. Yep. So I tell them, don't rush, right? Sports industry isn't going anywhere. It's always going to be there. Yep. Go build your skill set and you'll find that opportunity as different opportunities come along.
Well, Charlie, I really do appreciate your time. Where, if people are listening to this podcast and they want to reach out to you and say, Charlie, I really enjoyed the podcast, this is me telling everyone to do that. Where should they reach out to you? Is it LinkedIn, and is that the best platform?
LinkedIn is the best way to reach out to me. And you could just type in my name and I'm sure you'll find it. And then, my handle for Twitter is CRM in Sports. So that's another avenue that they could reach out to me in. I try to tweet as much as possible, but like I said, I'm more on the Facebook, but that's more of a personal, so I don't accept any.
So LinkedIn, look up Charlie on LinkedIn. If you're connected with me, you'll find Charlie because we are connected. If you're not connected with both of us, then you're doing it wrong. Please send us both a LinkedIn invite and say you listen to the podcast. Charlie, I hope to be able to get back to the United States soon and hopefully get to a Colts game. It's one of the NFL venues I haven't been to. I've been lucky enough to see the Colts facility. So I look forward to be able to come back and catching a Colts game and hopefully catching up at a conference sometime in the near future. Hopefully
so, and you will always be welcome here in Indianapolis.
Learn from the Sports Geek Amplify Season 1 cohort: Timo, Vlast, Stellar Algo, Ubi Park, and Zoof. For more, go to sportsgeekamplify.com.
Thanks again to Charlie Shin. CRM in Sports is his Twitter handle. Send him a tweet and also send him a message on LinkedIn. Tell him that you listened to the episode and that you enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Charlie's going to do in the world of the NFL at the Indianapolis Colts. As we discussed, there's a lot of opportunities there, and it's going to be exciting to see the NFL kick off with a full season as the sports world starts recovering from the last 18 months. So please reach out to Charlie. Tell him that you listened to the episode. If you're someone similar as Charlie, looking to change jobs or changing jobs or looking for a job and need a hand, might need a phone call. And if there's a way that you think I can help you as a podcast listener, I'd like to help you. I've opened up office hours specifically for people looking for a job or looking to change careers or just need a little bit of help, potentially recovering a position if they'd lost a position as part of the pandemic. You can go to sportsgeekhq.com/office hours and book in. Let's have a chat and see if we can get you back on the path. Before I wrap up, just wanted to talk about digital to dollars because I'm applying it in a few different ways and a few different projects at the minute. So I want to discuss how it could work for you and for your team. And it really comes down to what is the objective for digital for you? Is it fan growth? Is it digital engagement? Is it delivery for your sponsors? Is it increasing revenue from digital? And those things can be different for different people and for different clients. But the digital dollars process can offer solutions in that. Fan growth really sits in knowing your audience, understanding your audience, diving in and trying to find those audiences of opportunity, finding those different audiences that you can start serving with particular content and particular channels, which is know your content, know your distribution. Digital engagement is, again, across that same sort of those same three pillars. What are the audience you want to engage? What's the content that's going to engage them? And what is the best platform to engage them on? Delivery for sponsors starts to go into the back end of digital to dollars in knowing your value and knowing your pitch. So what can you deliver them from a content point of view? on the platforms that the fans like, but then also deliver the outcomes for your partners. And then increasing revenue from digital, the easy one or the simplest one is digital activations and digital results for your partners. But it also includes selling tickets, selling memberships, selling merchandise. How can you use digital as a marketing channel from a point of view of creating the content, using the right distribution channels, and then, as I was talking about earlier, using things like Facebook advertising to amplify that message, but also look at conversions and actually drive sales. So very adaptable, worked at grassroots sport all the way up to pro teams and leagues. Please get in touch on Digital to Dollars. You can find out more at digitaldollars.com, or you can send me an email. The question I'm going to leave this episode with is, have you planned your digital upfronts? What are digital upfronts? Well, they're exactly the same as the TV industry. They always promote the new TV series that are coming out, and they push it to their advertisers in what is termed upfronts to say, hey, here's going to be the new hot shows coming out. Which ones do you as a advertiser want to be a part of? So digital upfronts are that, profiling your best pieces of content and campaigns that you plan to do over the next 12 to 18 months to help your sponsors to go, yes, I want to be involved with that piece of content. So I'm a real strong believer in these digital upfronts and setting it up as a means to help your commercial team sell what you're doing in the digital space. So if you want to talk about how to set up your digital upfronts, please get in touch. That's it for this episode. As always, I want to work on big problems. Normally it starts with a phone call. You can book that sportsgeekhq.com/phone call. You can book in for a 2-hour session, whether it's to look at your Facebook Business Manager, review a marketing campaign, or review a pitch you're about to put to a sponsor. That's exactly what the Pick My Brain sessions are for. Don't forget, you can check out some great sports technology companies at sportsgeekamplify.com. There's Timo, Stellarago, Zoomph, UbiPark, Vlast. Please check them out. They're quality organizations. And as always, you can sign up at Patreon to support what I'm doing in the sports business content space. sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. And don't forget, follow my esports team at Gravitas on Twitter, at GravitasOS on Instagram. We're currently sitting third on the ladder in the LCO. It's unforeseen territory for us to be in a positive margin on the win-loss record. We're not familiar with it, but we're dealing with it. And then I also find out that Elon Musk names his latest drone ship a short full of Gravitas. So it's great to have Elon on board as a Gravitas fan. Until next time, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
We'd love your support on our Patreon campaign. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. Have you listened to the Sports Geek Amplify series? Go to sportsgeekamplify.com to listen.